You're listening to the Beyond Mommy Dearest podcast, where we talk about growing up with narcissistic moms, how it shapes your nervous system, your relationships, and your sense of self, and how to heal without shame. I'm your host, Noelani Pearl Hernandez.
This episode is sponsored by the Happy Cannabis, body products designed to help you on your healing journey by supporting your nervous system with every application.
Trigger warning. This episode contains discussion of suicidal thought, self-harm ideation, sexual trauma, dissociation, and complex PTSD. Please listen with care and take breaks if you need to. Your safety and well-being matter. If you're in crisis or need immediate support, please contact a trusted mental health professional or the crisis resource in your area. I'm joined today by author Barbara Latinka, creator of the powerful trilogy Spells for Surviving a Haunted Childhood. Through a unique blend of memoir, poetry, healing practices, and what she calls grimoire, Barbara shows her journey through childhood trauma, abandonment, abuse, survival, and ultimately healing. In this episode, we talk about what it means to feel unseen, unheard, and alone. Let's dive in. Barbara, thank you so much for being here with me today. In your books, Spell for Surviving a Haunted Childhood, they're really moving and really interesting and really accessible for kids. And I think for me, growing up, having a narcissistic mom, I just didn't have the words to say, this is what is happening to me. And so a lot of people just didn't believe me. And for you, you said that you carried this story in silence for so many years. So what shifted for you where you finally felt safe enough that it be necessary that you speak?
For me, silence was survival for years.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I began my trauma therapy, I started realizing the secrets that I was holding on to and how it physically altered my chemistry. It literally weighed on me. So I began divulging these secrets through my writings, and every secret I opened up about, I felt literally better, like weights being lifted off of me. It's unlike anything that I had ever felt before in regards to my trauma. So it almost turned into, like silence was my survival, but my healing is my voice.
Right. I love that. I love that. That will be one of our podcast teasers. Is you saying that. I think that's great. And one of the things that you said was with a voice forged in survival. And that's such a powerful line. And it really, I think, probably resonates with a lot of our listeners, because that thought of, your body, it's affects your body because you're holding things in for so long. So what does it actually feel like now in your body and your life now? What does that feel like for you?
Honestly, I can breathe. I'm able to take the biggest breath of fresh air that I've ever been able to take in my entire life. And I didn't even realize that I was breathing underwater for so many years. It's amazing what writing has done for me, and the way that I'm able to cope with the awful traumatic things that I had gone through just through pen and paper.
I love that.
Been transcendent in regards to my physical health and mental health.
And I love that because I think for a lot of people, if they're not even ready to talk, I think that writing or journaling or drawing, we know this great neuro drawer who takes you through a whole process. We've had her do in our conferences where it's just that drawing and that release, or any kind of art, music, any of those things is so important. Excuse me. And I think it's really important for kids to learn at a young age, because we just don't have the words. I don't think any 8, 9, 10, even maybe 15, 16-year-old would be like, oh, narcissism is when blah, 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 blah. It's not a thing. They don't, maybe now more than ever, but I think it's more pop talk where it's oh, you're gaslighting me. Or you're acting like a narcissist, where there's not that true meaning of what it means. and it's more
Yeah.
of that, pop term. And before we get in the book, can you define for me what a haunted childhood looks like?
Um, so if you feel haunted through your childhood, I would say that that's anyone who feels unseen,
Hmm.
unheard, or
Hmm.
alone,
Hmm.
like a ghost in your own existence,
Hmm.
just
Yes.
floating through life and
Yes.
just taking everything with a grain of salt because if you take it any heavier, it's too much to bear.
A lot of survivors talk about like a fog being lifted. And I live in this area where we live in the valley and we have these hills around us in California. And one of the most beautiful things that I say, and my kids go to a high school here, and when the fog comes in, it comes into their school. So they walk
Mm-hmm.
around in the fog. And I think that's the coolest thing ever because what I see is like a new washover and a new beginning. And I love when the fog just rolls right over into our valley. I think it's such a beautiful thing. And can you tell me first the names of your books so we make sure that everyone knows what the names of the three-part series are?
Yeah, so the whole entire trilogy is called Spells for Surviving a Haunted Childhood, but it is
Mhm.
in a three-part sequence.
Okay.
So it is chronologically important that you read each
Okay.
part as it's written.
Okay. Okay. And then your book is written as is it a grime memoir?
Grimoire.
Grimoire. Okay. Thank
Yes.
you.
So not a
So
memoir, but more of a
a
grimoire.
grimoire. Oh,
Yeah.
grr. A grimoire. I love it.
Yes.
That's
Which
so unique.
technically the term grimoire is supposed to be a book of spells. That is
Okay.
its actual definition and meaning. So I thought that that
Mhm.
was really cool play on words to switch it up.
Yeah,
And it is a book of spells, but it's also my memoir. And it has
I
this
love it.
grim feeling to it, especially like the covers. You see this little haunted girl, and you
Yeah,
just think like grim fairy tales and then
yeah.
just like Tim Burton vibes.
I love Tim Burton. Oh, I
Same.
love Tim Burton so much.
Yes.
I mean, I love all of it. And it's such a like unique way of telling stories, the way like
Mhm.
instantly, oh, that's a Tim Burton film,
Yes.
right? Like you don't even it doesn't even need to say by, award-winning director Tim Burton. Like you just see
Yeah.
it.
It gives the
And
vibe.
so yeah, and
Yeah.
I love that. And this is like this format is so interesting. So what drew you to telling your story through these spells instead of like a traditional memoir that some people do?
So the interesting part is whenever I was like this whole series is very linear with my trauma healing. I was
Mhm.
literally in trauma therapy,
Oh
not just
wow.
regular therapy, trauma
Yeah,
therapy
trauma
for
therapy. Hmm.
childhood trauma.
Hmm.
So going through this, my wonderful therapist, she recommended a ton of different grounding exercises.
Hmm.
And to
Hmm.
me, I'm a spooky girl. I
I am
love the
too.
darker things in life.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. So to me, when she was describing these things, they really just felt magical. Like,
Yeah.
what? I
Yeah.
can ground myself and come back
Yeah.
to my true self just by opening up my senses
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
positive affirmations. What?
Hmm. Hmm.
So then
Hmm.
the wheels started turning, and I'm like, I could make each chapter have its own corresponding spell.
I love
Then
that.
here's the really great part.
Yeah.
These spells are building blocks for meditation,
Oh my gosh. I love that.
right?
That is so important. And I think
Yes.
that for people who have been through either this trauma, especially early childhood trauma, we know what that does to our DNA, to our
Mhm.
nervous systems, to our life, like our longevity in life. And so being able to pull it back to a meditation, whether that, writing is meditative for people, saying it, a positive affirmation, drawing. And for you, then these spells for survival were kind of meditative. And tell me, like thinking back, and we don't have to go like into the trauma, but thinking back for you as a child, what were those spells that kind of kept you present or kept you to okay, I'm going to live another day? Were those spells?
Self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Yeah, just
Mm-hmm.
talking to myself. I've always had this little voice, this little girl voice inside my
Mm-hmm.
head. Even as a little girl growing up, I would, as a little girl, you've seen the 90s movies where you have a devil
Yeah.
and an angel on your shoulder.
Oh
And I
yeah.
always
Mm-hmm.
envisioned this inner voice to be like my little angel and the one
Mm-hmm.
that's telling me, keep going. You've got
Mm-hmm.
this. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
That positive self-talk is so important at any age in life.
Yes.
And she's never left me. She's always been there.
Oh,
So
I love that.
yes.
Well, and for me, like I think of like when I talk my girls or our son through, like when they, now they call it crash out. I don't think it's a crash out, but I think it's more of like when they get inside themselves or they get inside that, like, that the devil is not always like do a bad thing. It could be like that negative self-talk. So when that's like in front of them talking, and my husband does this for me, and we do it for the kids, is take a breath, get some oxygen moving to your brain,
Hmm.
right? Okay,
So
now,
important.
yeah, that's a huge thing. Like anytime where I start to feel I'm going to go off the rails, whether, I'm angry, anxious, whatever, I take that breath and then we figure it out and we do the same for the kids. Like, we're all about feeling your feelings. If you want to cry, that's fine. Like I can't control my crying right now because of perimenopause, the devil. But like if you cry, you cry, that's fine. And we're going to say, okay, you're crying. What is overloading you right now? Or what are you feeling right now?
That is
And
so good
yeah.
that you do that for your children because not every child has that opportunity to feel
Mm-mm.
their feelings.
Right.
I was a 35-year-old woman when I realized that you're
Mhm.
allowed to be angry,
Yeah.
that you're allowed to
Yeah.
be sad,
Yeah.
that it's
Yeah.
not a feeling that you have to run from.
No,
And
not at all.
actually, my anger and my sadness is the core inspiration for my series. When
I
I
love
began
this.
journaling, I
Yeah.
went through like just the saddest period of my life
Hmm.
where I just
Hmm.
felt so sad for everything I had ever lost or not had.
Hmm.
And then it just switched into anger, like deep
Hmm.
anger. And like
Hmm.
even my husband was like, he knew my chemistry was off that
Yeah,
week. It
yeah,
was
yeah,
just anger.
yeah.
And then a spark of inspiration happened.
Right,
And it's so
right.
crazy how that happens when you allow yourself to feel all the things, then your body opens up
Hmm.
to all these wonderful things and ideas and inspiration. And that's where this whole series came from.
I love that. And I will make sure that for our show notes that we link to the feeling wheel because even as adults, we don't know what those feelings are. And that, it might not just be anger, it could be disappointment or frustration, like it goes deeper. And knowing those words and thinking, like with some of my clients that we work with, from our Beyond Mommy Dearest coaching, where we're working with narcissistic relationship recovery abuse recovery, we talk about, okay, what are you feeling? What's the word? Because if you can
Name
pinpoint
it.
the word, then we can figure that out. And so we start with those words. We say, okay, here are your words. Here's your inner circle, the bigger, bigger, bigger. Well, let's figure out what you're feeling. So when you feel some kind of way, stop, take a breath. I'm feeling this, write it down. You don't have to, go into detail, just write it down because we can go back to it. And I think that's really important. And, your book is told through fragments and vignettes and poetic memories, which I think are really meaningful. Can you talk about how your trauma shaped your memories and why this format really felt like the best way to write this?
Yeah, I didn't want to overwhelm readers with traumatic stories, so I
Mm-hmm,
kept them
hmm.
light and sweet and very immersive. So if you notice throughout the series, I mentioned things about all of the senses, your sight, what I'm seeing,
Mm-hmm,
what I'm
hmm.
smelling, what I'm tasting, what I'm feeling. And I felt like that was a really great way to connect with readers and understanding the power that your senses have.
Hmm.
But again, to keep everything nice and short between chapters, these are some really heavy traumatic topics. And if I dive too deeply into it, readers are, I would worry, become re-traumatized by being too immersed into these stories. That's the nice thing too about the spells afterwards, is it's a nice little breath of fresh air before you move on to the next heavy topic, or a nice breaking point to step away and come back later.
Right. It's a recentering of things. And I think that for a lot of people, we talk about, I've talked about in other podcasts, I've talked to a couple, like a shaman, where she talks about, that these feelings can become overwhelming. And so figuring out what that balance is, my first podcast guest, who I absolutely love, she talks about how she figured out that she was in this relationship when her body just stopped working. And I think for kids, we're just really resilient, right? And especially if the trauma occurred very early and it's something that it was just normal, we think, oh, this is the way it's supposed to be. And so then when you get into a healthy relationship, you're like, why aren't we fighting? Why isn't this happening? What's going on? So I think that you being able, we just talked about this in regards to feelings, but you being able to bring the reader, and you're looking at like young adults. So like teenagers, you are kind of pinpointing teenagers where they kind of know the language, but they don't know if they know the language. And so this is going to help them. And, one of the things that I have noticed about myself as I'm doing this is I don't have a lot of memories from when I was young. I'm triggering memories now as I'm talking to people about their experiences. And people might see I've like flashed this a couple times because I'll be talking and it'll be in my hand. These worry rocks have been like a godsend to me in regards to like figuring out, what is causing me to panic. Or I originally bought them because of my hand weakness, because I'm typing all the time, right? The first generation to have that. And I got a squishy, I got an axolotl. But these have been really interesting. And in fact, I had one in my pocket and we went to the dentist. My daughter had a dentist appointment and she was getting a little antsy. I was like, here, you may have the rock. And she was like, oh, thank you. And then she, gave it back to me. It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
When you were writing this, were there memories for you that were harder to access or even harder to write about than others?
Absolutely. I would say all of part 2.
Okay.
That entire chunk of time was very hard to tap into, for the simple fact that I was over medicated as a teenager.
Oh.
Yes, I was placed on high levels of lithium and Zoloft, which I don't know if you know this now, counteract each other and make you suicidal.
I'm so sorry.
There's been studies done. And I was force fed these medications as a teen. So when I went back and started writing, I had a plethora of stories for part 1, even more for part 3. But part two, I felt like you were saying earlier, it was a fog. And I had to travel through this fog with my pen and paper to find stories and connections. And if you read it and it feels a little bit more disconnected than the rest of the series, there's a reason for that.
Yeah. As listeners, once they go and get this book, and we'll make sure we put the links in the show notes. What I would love for you to do is, when you get to part 2 and you've read through it, to just go on Instagram and send Barbara a little note. Because I think that people forget that this kind of stuff does take, it takes a lot out of people. Like, for example, I have a Facebook Live after this that will turn into a podcast as well. And I will probably lay down on the couch for 3 or 4 hours. Now, some of that has to do with like society as a whole, like everything that's going on and the heaviness of it. And it's a lot when we do these things. And I didn't realize how much it affected me until I started doing work with other women who have experienced narcissistic women, or mothers, other women to them. And so just make sure that you, as you're reading it, take care of yourself and drop Barbara a quick little note and tell her thank you. Just so she knows. You know what? That's another thing is we don't know if what we're doing is working. We hope that it is. And if I can save one life, that's all I care about. Just one.
Yes.
I don't even need to save all of them, just one. And that's it. So, there is something really powerful about naming your ghosts, right? And can you share with me what your ghosts were in your childhood?
I would say the ghosts in my childhood were versions of me
Interesting. Okay.
along the way, little pieces of me that felt unseen or unheard. And there's that piece of me left in that memory
hmm
there forever, clinging, waiting, hoping, dreaming
hmm hmm
for recognition, love, affection, attention that I never
hmm
received.
hmm
Um, yeah, I would definitely say that the ghosts are all parts of me.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
really well. And I want you to know that I see you. Like, I think that that's a real, like, I don't think that people understand the power that being seen has for people who have been through this abuse. And for me, what I've experienced with people is when I say, you don't even have to tell me how your mom was crazy, I already know. And they're
Right.
like, really? You believe me? I said, people don't make this shit up. Like, they just
No,
don't. Like,
especially
when,
children. That's what I don't.
yes,
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 children aren't
yes.
out here like saying that they were traumatized just for the
No,
hell of it. No,
no,
there is a
no.
reason. And I tell my girls this all the time. They'll say, "Oh, this and this happened." And instead of questioning them, like, "Are you sure that that's how it happened?" It's
Yeah,
like, "Well, it
yeah,
must have happened because you're bringing it
yeah,
up. It matters
yeah,
to you."
yeah. This is how it affected you. And this
Hmm.
is, and let's talk through how it affected you. I think that's a really valuable thing to like say, oh, that didn't happen. And I think, especially, probably, I am making an assumption that you are much younger than me. So, as parents, um, there was a lot of that didn't happen. What are you talking about? Like, even if so, here's my tip for parents, and you don't have to take it, but even if it didn't happen exactly the way that your child is sharing with you, there is a perception that it happened that way. And so talking through that, to ask them, well, why do you feel like it happened that way? Or tell me what you saw and let's have a discussion instead of, oh, that didn't happen. You're an idiot. Like, that's
Yes,
usually what I got. And I was like, no, I remember you beat the shit out of me. Like, I can't
yes,
express that. I remember that. And
a
I,
hundred percent.
I still, even to this day, when I tell the story of my mom and my dad, they were middle class, working at the same place, worked separate shifts, and thought, I have a great idea. Which, I get where they were coming from, kind of. When my dad was coming home from graveyard and my mom was leaving to go on day shift, there was, I think, like 2 or 3 days a week where they overlapped. And they thought it is a great idea for us to leave our 3-year-old daughter sleeping by herself in the house. And I was like, no, like, as a parent now, no
Right.
way. Right. I would, no, absolutely not. Those kind of traumas like really, really stick with you. So I
I
think,
bet that when she was 3, it was going through your brain like, how
oh
could my
yeah,
parents have possibly left me alone
yes,
at this age?
I know. It happens all the time. Like, it
Yes.
happened to me all the time. Like, and it happens in the flip side. Like, I think of my daughter now, she's 30, and I'm like, when I was 30, I had, like, she says this to me all the time. When you were 30, mom, you had a 12-year-old. And I was like, yeah, crazy, right? She's all, no, I don't want that. I was like, I'm glad that you don't want that. But I also knew, like, for me, I knew, and my husband and I were talking about this earlier, like, you don't have to know what you want, but the important thing is for you to know what you do not want.
Hmm.
And I knew that I did not want to be like my mom. I wanted to be connected with my daughter. I wanted to be around and give her things, not all the things that she wanted, but like a majority of the things she wanted that would make sense to get her to the end goal of her life. Meaning,
Yes.
like, what did it look like as an adult? And for me, that, like, a lot of parents, there is this crab pot mentality I think that comes with it, where it's like, you have to go through this. I always say, no, no, I don't.
No.
Yeah, like there's that crap pot mentality of like my daughter like reaching the top, and then I'm like, nice, nice job. That I don't understand that. Like,
I don't either. There's so many parents out there that do not want their child to succeed or be better than them, and
yes,
they're okay with them
that's
being right down
crazy.
here, right where
That's
they can control
crazy.
them.
That's
It is to
crazy.
me. Yeah. Another thing you were just talking about is something that I definitely wanted to talk about is
Yeah.
spite with healing and parenting. So
Yes.
spite to me
Hmm.
felt like healing for the longest time. I'm not going to
Yes.
be like XYZ,
Yes.
and that felt right. But
Yes.
sometimes you can get into this self-hate cycle and
Yes.
your expectations of yourself are
Preach.
so
Yes.
high
Yes.
that
Yes.
you just get to a point where it's unattainable and your self-hate talk
Yes.
is awful because you're constantly
Yes.
comparing yourself to your mother and what she
Yes.
did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
So,
like it's crazy. Like, I think of this and I see a lot of leaders, because sometimes leaders are those overachievers that get to a higher spot in their business. And they usually come to us in our other business where they're having like crazy imposter syndrome, because they're like, we're overachieving. And did we ever get here? I don't know how I got here. And like, you just have to like push all the noise away and have a real conversation with them. Like, for me, I want all of my kids to be more successful than me. Then I've done my job as a parent.
mm-hmm.
Like, there's no jealousy there. I'm going to talk about them all the time. Look at how amazing they are. Blah 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 blah.
I
I
put
have no
myself in
jealousy.
my kids' shoes all the
Mhm.
time. What
Yes.
would I want from my
Right.
mother at
Yes.
that age?
Yes.
What was I
Hmm.
longing for at 15? What
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
I want at 6? You know?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think it's really important for us as parents not to like live above our children, but
No.
to sit down eye to eye with them
Right.
all the time.
Right.
And if anything, push them up because
Right.
that's the point of
Yeah.
life, right? We
Right.
want
Well,
the next
yes.
generation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I'm going to add a little bit onto it to say, and they also, so yes, and so people don't think we're Pollyannish here. And they also have to know that we're parents. So
Mm-hmm.
that, 18 years that I have on my daughter now, with my 14-year-old, what is it, 35 years that I have on him, that wisdom, that time, all of that, when we are taking the time to say something, we're saying it for a reason. And you can take from that what you will, or you cannot, and you can ignore us and fail, and that's fine. We'll be there to help you.
Yeah.
And that's a really important thing. And I also know, here's the crazy thing. If your teenager is not acting out and pushing on you, they are not developing healthily. There's like a
Right.
study that talks about this, and I'll post it in the show notes too, that said it is natural for them to be like a little eye rolly and a little like, oh, mom, why are you
I
saying
know
that?
better than you.
Yeah, they don't. So let's just be clear. Of course they don't. But
Of course.
yeah, but that's the way that they're supposed to act. And I think that is a really important thing. One of the things that happened in your book is your um, main character in your book doesn't have a name. And I just commented on your cute earrings because I think we're kindred spirits and we love ghoulish, ghosty stuff. I love Halloween. And so tell me about your earrings, and then we can transition into the why you think that she was nameless, or why you decided to have her be that haunted child, nameless, and then turned into the healer.
Okay. Yeah. So these little earrings were a gift from a reader.
I love them.
Yes. So my character throughout, she is nameless. And
Hmm.
because of that, I kind of reference her as Ghost Girl, just
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
existent spirit that
Hmm.
floats through life by the whim of everyone else.
Hmm. Hmm.
And in doing so, this reader really resonated with it. When she sent me this little package, she said, from one ghost girl to another. And that was just
I love
my
that. That's
heart.
touching. I
Yes.
love that. It like it it makes you feel like you're the healer, right?
Yes.
Like you've healed someone. So talk to me about that transformation from feeling haunted to feeling like you're the healer now.
I would say the key ingredient to
Mhm.
moving from the haunted to the healer is awareness.
Mm, mhm,
When you have
mhm,
awareness, you have everything. You have
mhm,
this deeper understanding of not only your emotions, but your behaviors and what those are rooted to. You
mhm,
have this ability to understand your physiological chemistry. Like
mhm.
when I get nervous, I know that I break out in body sweats and my
Yeah,
heart
yeah,
starts racing and
yeah.
my fists clench up. And because I'm aware of this, I'm noticing, oh, Barb, you're in panic mode.
Mhm,
Your
mhm.
amygdala is firing at all
Yeah,
cylinders right
yeah,
now. You need
yeah.
to slow the F down.
Yes, yes. I totally get that because for me, and I think we before we started recording, I shared with you, and I've dropped it a couple times. I'm in perimenopause, and I think because I had boomer parents, I was not allowed to have panic attacks, know what anxiety was, understanding that stuff. And what I have discovered since perimenopause is, for my daughter, I was like, how are you feeling? What's going on? And so for her, she's very in touch with that. And I said, like, to my husband, I said, I'm feeling like this existential dread, like coming over me. And he's like, it's okay. You're going to be okay. He talked me through it. And then I realized that it's very common in perimenopause to have these anxieties. And then I messaged my daughter and I was like, I am so sorry for not totally understanding what the anxiety was. And then I talked to her recently because I was having a panic attack, and I wasn't telling her I was having a panic attack, but apparently like the way I was text messaging, the cadence of it was like, because I was trying to get information out of her and I was really focused on it.
Yeah.
And
Boom,
she
boom,
was
boom,
like,
boom, boom, boom.
oh my, yeah. She was like, oh my God, calm down. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just having a panic attack right now. And my daughter was like, you've always been like this. I was like, what now? And she was like, and it kind of hurt. But then I was like, I guess I have. Like, I've always been a little bit more anxious. And I thought, oh, it's because my dad and my mom were high strung, or that I had a really crappy childhood. And I think for so many listeners, there's this moment that we realize, oh my God, that was not a normal childhood. And for you, did you have that moment? And what did that really look like for you?
I was very young,
Okay.
very young. So in part one, you learned that my mother literally leaves me for the circus, literally leaves me for the circus. I'm going to reiterate that. And as a girl, I didn't think that this was abnormal. I just thought
Yeah.
everybody's mom up and packs up and leaves with some loser to show after show. So, so I was at a sleepover. I no older than 8 or 9. I was at a
Mm-hmm.
sleepover at a friend's
Mm-hmm.
house, and the parent was just inquisitive on my home life. And I'm like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I live with my dad. And she says, well, what about your mom? Oh, well, she's off. She ran off with the circus. And the look I got told me this isn't normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was like this instant understanding that this isn't for everybody. This isn't everyone's
Right.
story. And that's kind of what tapped into understanding that my story is unique. And that was that
Yes.
first sense of like, oh wow, this isn't what everyone else is going
Right.
through. This is
Right.
different. And it just kind of like layered on top of that as you go through the books. Sadly, that's not the only traumatic thing that's happened to me. So as you
Sorry.
go through the
Mm-hmm.
books and each layer
Mm-hmm.
uncovers more and more and more, there just became such awareness that this isn't normal, this isn't right, this isn't
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then this desire to want to be a mom myself, even as a young
Mm.
girl, just to
Yeah.
prove I could do it. It's not
Right.
that hard. Just be there for your
Yeah.
children, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That I think is a really interesting thing. I think for me, like I think about, well, when was it? When did I know that what was going on wasn't normal? And I think that I probably knew deep down inside, like there was this intuition. And then when I saw other families together, like, and my poor dad, I joked last episode or a couple of episodes ago that my poor dad has a propensity to attract women who are narcissists. My mom was a narcissist. My stepmom was a narcissist. The jury is out on his current girlfriend. And so I don't know much about her, which I think is odd. That's like my first sign of, okay, sister, what's going on? But my dad's an adult and there's only so much I could do. So what I found as the moment was that my mom belittled the hell out of my dad. Like there was this whole chemistry and relationship between them that it just was not healthy at all. And I saw another mom and dad together and I was like, look at them. They're so amazing. It's interesting. And it's interesting how it shapes or how it has shaped the environment that I've been in lately. Meaning like my first relationship, I was with a crazy narcissist. My husband now is not that person. I had to go through a failed relationship and then met I tease my Prince Charming, but he really is like, he is like amazing.
You went with what felt comfortable.
Yes, exactly. I was like, oh, the chaos, that makes sense. Right. Yeah. And now I'm like, no, this is chill. Right. Some of the imagery that you use in your book is just so striking. Like a blizzard trying to eat you, or the circus that forgot your name. So how do those metaphors like really connect to your life experience? You just talked about your mom leaving you for the circus, like literally, but like how do the other how does the other imagery connect to your lived experience?
I wish that these were metaphors. They're true stories, all of them. But I looked at this through the lens of a child. How would a child see this? What did the blizzard try to do? Try to eat me, right?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And being a mom myself and a homeschooler and being so connected to my children's education and their literature and their reading really helped me develop my own sense of childlike wonder as I was writing this. I had to kind of tap into that child mindset and that framework to think like, okay, how would a child see this experience? And that's how I was able to get through the poetry and the metaphors that I had used. But again, as poetic as it sounds, a lot of it is just truth.
And that's a crazy thing. Right? Like, there's like these movies like, this is worse than the truth. And it's like, no, the truth for me is like 1,000 times worse. Yeah. Like to me, that's the thing that we talked about it a little is like, there are conversations that I've had where people just don't believe what I'm saying. Right. In fact, I remember going in high school to the counselor in high school. And God bless her, she just wasn't trained to be able to see something like this. And I said,
nobody
these are
was
the issues.
Then. Right. Nobody. We're just understanding trauma and how it affects our brains. Like just now.
And and we can talk about ACEs and all that stuff. And I think that that is like a really important thing that we should bring up. Like our poor generation, we were like the test cases. But I remember talking to the counselor and saying, no, but you don't understand. My mom's crazy. And she's like, no, I'll think that our mom's crazy. And I was like, no, but you don't understand. When I'm like, hey, it's time to go to school, she will pull my hair and throw me to the ground. That's not normal. My mom's 4'11". I'm 5'1". I'm taller than her by magnitudes, even though I'm not that tall. That is not normal. It's not normal for you to grab your child's hair and pull her down when she wants to go to school. She wants to learn. Like it's
but that was your normal. And that's what is so sad is like, and you're crying for help. You're telling people this is not okay. And they're like, oh, they're just so dismissive.
Yeah. We're going to, one of the ways that I rate things, we're going to give them up. That was horrible back then. And survival for me looked much different as a child than it did as an adult. So what for you, how does it look different? Like, what does survival look for you now?
Well, as we talked earlier, survival for me as growing up was silence. Keep this to yourself. You don't talk about things that make other people uncomfortable. Joke about it, laugh at it. That's how I survived high school. Like
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
mom leaving me for the circus was my punchline.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how I survived then. Now it's my voice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I use it to help other victims
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that their haunted childhood or their haunted past is valid. They're
Mm-hmm.
heard, they're
Mm-hmm.
seen. I hear
Yep.
them, I see them, and I will
Mm-hmm.
speak up for them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I speak up for my daughters and I encourage them to do the same thing. And in
Yep.
that sense, isn't that the ultimate survival is that we're
Mm-hmm.
instilling these things into our children, our
Mm-hmm.
daughters, our sons, that they can take this into their next generation and
Mm-hmm.
teach their children
Right.
uh, these things. And that's all stemming from you because you are the one
Yeah.
that broke the cycle and you're the
Yep.
one that's helping them grow. Like,
Mm-hmm.
isn't that like I will transcend generations from these
Mm-hmm.
things that I'm teaching my children now
Right.
because they will continue to teach their children, their grandchildren, etc. And isn't that just so like beautifully
Oh
thought
God,
like that,
yeah.
that you're going to outlive everything, not only through your books, but through your teachings, through being able to help your daughters regulate their emotions
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
understand their behaviors and the way that their brain works and all these
Yeah.
important things that we didn't get.
It's so interesting because I had this conversation with my daughter recently because, I'm not in contact with any of my family. My mom, I'm not in contact with her. My dad's side of the family, I'm biracial. They are incredibly racist, which I always find odd because I'm like, hey, I'm right here. I'm I'm created from you guys. And some of the stuff they say, I just like, I'm not down for it. Okay, fine, whatever. And so my daughter, it's it was just me and her until about my husband and I have been together for almost 12 years now until he and I met. And she by then was graduated from high school. She had been with me by herself for some time. And then, so she really didn't know how to be in a family. Like neither of us did. Like the
Right.
politics of a family. I don't have any siblings, any of that
It
stuff. I'm like,
reminds me
fuck
so
no.
much of
Yeah.
Gilmore Girls,
Oh,
where
does it? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lorelai and Rory, where they like try to let somebody in. It's like, no, you're not the right fit, but you just had
Yeah.
to find your loop, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. And I will tell you, my husband is amazing. Like his patience with me and all that stuff. Cause there's some things that like I've gone through where like I can a lot less now, but back then a trigger like for me, like justice is a really big trigger, and it is for a lot of kids who have been through any kind of
You
abuse.
have to,
So
yeah, be on the
yeah,
right side of things.
right.
It's very
Always.
important
So I'm
to your
like,
core being.
like I go from one to it's time to ride or die. I'm gonna kick your ass. Like
Mm-hmm.
still, even at my age, still I get that way. And when family does it, and it's a not you are entered into this family. This is my chosen family. It's a really interesting thing. My sister-in-law is close to my daughter's age. There was a conversation that her, my daughter, and my sister-in-law were going to have, and I talked to both of them separately. And because my sister-in-law is my sister-in-law, I can talk to her differently than I talk to my daughter. And so they talked afterwards, and like they had this adult conversation where they cared about everyone's feelings and they stopped before they thought. And we do before they said anything, we do a lot of trauma informed work in our other consulting firm. And I do it with women and their moms. And I was like, that I told both of them, it is a really a beautiful thing to watch you two in this relationship be thoughtful, not bulldoze over anybody, and be thoughtful about the way that you're talking to each other. Come to a conclusion, understand that maybe you might have hurt each other, but not purposefully. And
Mm-hmm.
because you're not so focused on the intent, the impact is not as big on that person. I was like, it makes me want to cry. So, like you said, that breaking the cycle is a really
Yes.
big thing. It's huge. And I know I don't ever mention their names, and I know they'll probably listen to this. So I want them to know that I'm just so proud of them. They're just so that like the two of them are much like their daughters in the next generation of cycle broken. They got to break other cycles, but this cycle specifically is broken, and they're doing a great job. And I appreciate that. You know,
Yes.
that was the moment that for me that I realized I'm really doing good work and I made it. So tell me, was there a moment for you that you realized that you were like, I have made it?
I would say yes and no. So there was two experiences I remember vividly. The
Mm-hmm.
first one being my oldest daughter, she's 16 now. She was
Mm-hmm.
5 days old, and I
Mm-hmm.
had taken her to her first doctor's appointment. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember looking in the back seat of my dad was actually driving me. I wasn't allowed to drive after giving birth. And I look in the back seat and I just start crying. I see this little
Mm-hmm.
sweet, innocent baby in this car seat and just thinking, oh my gosh, how could my mother have ever chosen to leave me? I love her
Right?
so much. And it's only
Yeah,
been 5 days.
I know, right?
I was 6 when my mom walked. So this feeling of like, I did this. I created her
Right.
and I've done it and I'm powerful. I can do this. Um, but then you start to realize as your daughters or your children start growing, you realize there's so many things
Mm-hmm.
that trigger you about their own
Mm-hmm.
existence.
Mm-hmm.
And you just
Mm-hmm.
don't even realize it until you're at that point in
Mm-hmm.
life. Like
Mm-hmm.
even now, my teenager first time driving is like triggering for me because of the bad
Mm-hmm.
experiences I had with my dad those first few times I was
Mm-hmm.
trying to drive and his
Right.
resistance on that. So like I'm still growing and I'm still learning. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say like I thought I had that moment then, but then I realized years and years
Yeah.
of just harboring still this resentment is realizing I'm still that little girl that's hurt.
Right.
So I
Right.
would say the true feeling of healing was literally writing this series
I love that.
and typing the
The
last
end.
period of
Yeah.
part 3, chapter 20, the last sentence, it all
Yeah.
coming together in this beautiful moment of finally feeling seen, feeling
Mm-hmm.
heard,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
feeling loved by the little girl inside me.
I
And
love that.
realizing that
Yep.
I'm not only my daughter's mother's, but I am my own mother.
Yes,
I'm
you
the
are.
mother I always needed. And
And you
here I
answered my
am. Hear me
question. The
roar.
next one. I love this. You answered my next question. I didn't. So, I mean, you don't even have to answer that one, which was, how did the trilogy change you? I think that like is a really beautiful thing. For a lot of us who don't have mothers that they just checked out, whether it's, like your mom, which I don't know. So, first of all, if no one's told you, I don't know how your mom would leave you. You are so adorable and you're so cute. And you had to have been even more adorable when you were a little baby. So, fuck your mom, is all I have
Oh
to say.
gosh.
Yeah, fuck your mom. That's
Yeah,
all I have to
right?
say.
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
look at me.
So, yeah, you're
Yeah,
super
no, I
cute.
get that. My middle child is my twin. So
Oh, so
she's 13
cute.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard though, whenever I see her at the
Yep.
ages in which I was like deeply traumatized whenever she first left,
Yep.
whenever I was
Yep.
sexually abused, whenever
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
to hold on to these awful family secrets. I see my middle child and I see my eyes
Yep.
on
Yep.
her, and it's heartbreaking in such a humbling way.
Hmm. Absolutely. I think that one of the things that you discuss is that this book is for the quiet survivors. What do you want someone who's listening right now, who sees themselves in your story, to know?
Um, Keep going. There were points in my life where my story should have ended right there. Even part 1, chapter 1 was a near death experience, and
Mm-hmm.
it could have
Mm-hmm.
easily ended right there. But if it did, how many beautiful things would I have missed out on? My children wouldn't be here. And even into part 2, I divulged that there were 3 suicide attempts, all
Mm-hmm.
of them unsuccessful. But what if they weren't? And I know that there's people that feel this way every day. And I would just urge you, the biggest piece of advice I can give you is never fix a temporary problem with a permanent solution. Everything is temporary.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Mm-hmm.
emotion, every feeling, every moment, and
Mm-hmm.
it will pass.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
promise.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I think that for a lot of people, And I don't want to discount the feeling because it feels like it's going to last forever. And sometimes it does
Mhm.
last a really, really long time. Like, just hold on. I think that for a lot of people, that inner voice of whatever their abuser, their mother, for me, like I can hear that voice. And sometimes it's really quiet, sometimes it's really loud. And, I talked a little bit about it, the Will Trent thing, where it's a constant like talking. And if someone is still in that place where they're
Mhm.
questioning their reality, what might you want to say to them besides like, this is only temporary? Like, what other thing, or what did someone maybe say to you that you remember?
Well, I would say that in the instance of this is you have to find your safe place, whether
Hmm.
that be a person, a mentor, a friend, a family member, to whatever degree. If you're questioning your own reality and what's true and what's not, and what feels like forever, and you maybe just need a sounding board, is find that person who you trust.
Hmm.
For me, it's my husband. And I think for you also, it's your husband too.
Yes.
You had to
Yeah.
find that safe place in
Hmm.
him in order to heal, or at least start your healing journey. Because
Yep.
if you're never safe, how can you possibly realize
Hmm.
what you've been through? How can you possibly look behind you when you're constantly worried about what's in front of you?
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting because I always say that my husband is my best friend. And, some women are like, you have to have girlfriends. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm good having my husband as my best friend. Like, I will
Mm-hmm.
say that the healing community is a beautiful space and everyone has been so open arms and I appreciate that. And, my husband, he is my ride or die. I know, like, if I need
Mm-hmm.
anything, and I saw it very firsthand when he, I think, is probably one of the only people besides me to stand up to my mom where he was like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing this. This is not the way it works." And he has met. I think he's only met her the one time.
And because he did that,
Yeah,
enabled you to be able to do that.
100%. It was so interesting because I know that my grandfather died, and it was at his funeral that my husband met my mom. My grandfather who died was my dad's dad, and because my mom immigrated over here from the Philippines, none of her family was here, and her father had died when she was younger, and I think her mother by that time had passed away too. But none of her family really was over here, so my grandparents kind of encompassed her. And let me one of the things I said was my entire family's racist. My grandfather and my grandmother were not at all. Like, they were like tip top amazing, probably one of the reasons why I survived as long as I did. And so my mom came into the funeral and she ignored my dad. It was his dad that passed away. Ignored my dad. Please keep in mind that they had been divorced by like 30 years by then. So I'm like, come on. She remarried before him.
Why
Like,
did
come
she
on,
even
get over it.
come?
Right.
Yeah.
And so she came. Then she wanted to sit by me, but I'm the oldest of all my cousins. So we were all sitting together. Right. And so we were like this force. We didn't want anybody to infiltrate that. So we all sat together. And she tried to sit
Mm-hmm.
down. I said, no, mom, this is, why don't you go sit over there? And she was really upset with me. And then she came later. And then after the funeral was over, I introduced her to my husband. I said, Mom, this is, Albert, and I would love for you to meet him. And my mom, 4'11, my husband is 6'3. He's almost 2 feet taller than her. My mom took her hand and put it in his face and said, I don't want to talk to you. I'm only talking to my daughter. And I was like, oh my God. The fact that he wasn't like, you know what, I'm good. Like, we probably should break up at that point. Like, I can't tell you the kind of patient man he is. And it was at that point where I was like, she then proceeded at that funeral to go around and talk shit about me to everyone. And there were people who were trying to stop her because they knew the like community work that we were doing and all that.
Right.
And they were saying, no, Noelani's done all this stuff. And they're like, no, she's all no, blah, 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 all the things. And it wasn't it. And so this was 11 years ago. Keep in mind, I don't keep in contact with many of them, but a cousin of mine who lives up north, she and I connected And she said, and she's a therapist. And I didn't know this, that she was a therapist. And she said, we were just talking, catching up on life. She's a second cousin. And I said, oh, I went to school to be a therapist too. But, getting the hours and the supervision is a lot of money. And I'll know, I totally understand. She said, what made you want to do that? I said, my mom's a narcissist. And she's like, oh my God, she was so much at your grandpa's funeral. And she started telling me all these things. I was like, you literally are the first person who's ever said this to me, family wise. And she's like, really? I said, yes. And she's like, do you think it's because I'm a therapist? I'm all, no, I think it's because everybody else is an idiot and they just didn't want to stand up to her. And she said, that's so interesting. So it was, I think very, very interesting when you find your people. Like you said, when you find your people, you find them. And my chosen family, I'm so, so incredibly blessed.
Yeah, you finally feel safe enough to,
yes,
express your needs and your wants and be able to talk. It's like, you pick up your kid from school and they're, they get in the car and you're like, how's your day? And then they start crying about something that happened earlier in the day. It's because
you're
mom
like, whoa.
is safe.
Yeah.
Now you're in the car, you're safe, you're allowed to process, and now the tears can flow,
Right.
and kids, it's not so different for adults. We have to find that person. And, whenever your parents aren't that person for you, you have to find them in the world.
Right.
You have to go out and find your person.
For me, it's a really interesting thing because it's so true is that your kids hold in their emotion. I used to work for this nonprofit I love to death where they used to say one of the things you do with your kids is like have an indoor snowball fight. And after expect that they'll probably cry. And it was like clockwork because that physical energy that they're getting out is all the layers of things that you stack up. And for us as survivors of trauma, there's like a lot of stuff packed up on there. Right? A lot of stuff. So I think that is really a poignant thing. If you could go back and speak to your younger self, what would you say?
I'm so proud of you. I'm incredibly proud of the burden that you carried, and you did it so well. And to get to this point in life, round of applause. You did it. You're amazing. Keep going.
We'll give them, let's see if my camera will do it. Let's see. There we go. We'll give them little celebrations and we'll give them little balloons, big ups. I think, for anyone who's been haunted from their past, and they read your trilogy, what do you want them to leave with? What's like the one thing that you would want them to, do this? Close the book and then say, all right, this is what I'm leaving with.
If you feel haunted by your past, you're not alone. I would say that you can carry your past without letting it carry you. That I want you to leave knowing that healing doesn't mean forgetting or erasing what happened. It just means that you're learning how to live alongside it and how to not let it control you. That the past, it can visit, but it doesn't have to stay forever. And like we were saying earlier in this conversation, that healing doesn't mean forgetting. You're never going to forget what happened to you. That's just, and healing is so important to understand too. Healing does not equal happiness. A lot of people think, oh, if I'm healed, I'll be happy. Sure, yes, but you'll also be sad. You'll also be mad. You'll also be allowed to feel all these things that you felt like you could never express before in a safe manner. So, again, just learning that your past doesn't define you and it doesn't get to decide everything for you. That's the biggest takeaway, I think, from this whole series.
I love that. I think that one of the things that we often talk about here is that healing isn't linear. So some days might feel like you're taking 10 steps forward and others might be 11 steps back, but you're moving forward. Even if you lose a little ground, you're still moving forward. And I think that that's what people, I think is really, really important to understand. One of the things that I saw recently, and I didn't know this, I was a kid when this happened, was I think in the late 80s, I think is when the American Disabilities Act came in. I don't know exactly when, but there is this Instagram video that's going around of the community, the disabled community, coming to the White House and to the Capitol and leaving their chairs and their, crutches or whatever they needed to walk and to be mobile. They left those and they went up the stairs. And I was like, oh my God, that's such a huge thing. And it took until the 80s for them to even be recognized, to even get an act to say, hey, can you have a ramp? Like things that are just absolutely ridiculous as we think about them now. And so for me, I think is that fight, that continued fight. And I really pull from, I think people who have been in these like grassroots fight where there's been, like I said, 10 steps forward and a step back. So Barbara, I really appreciate you sharing your story. I appreciate you sharing your books with us. We are going to put a link for people to be able to go and purchase the books from Amazon. Get all three of them. Get into your budget, get all three, and it'll be helpful. You can also follow Barbara on Instagram and reach out to her. And don't forget, after the second series, a quick little thank you. So whenever everyone starts messaging you thank you, you'll know this is because they listened to the podcast and they read the second book. And please give your two adorable dogs the squeeze, Cruella DeVille and Sirius Black, who we heard earlier in the podcast, but they are now super, super chill. And she's going to give them squishes from all of us. And thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to hop on here and just talk about more trauma-informed books that I think that we really need to have in society. Like I was saying earlier, it feels like only recently we're really understanding the effects of childhood trauma and what PTSD and CPTSD, the weight that you carry. We're just now understanding that, like, the physical relation with that. So having a series like this, I think, is so important for the mental health community, just to bring, again, awareness to the fact that it's so just because your childhood was haunted doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you're doomed.
Well, and that's one of the things that I think is really interesting, because you get me up on my soapbox when I talk about ACEs, because ACEs are adverse childhood experiences.
You don't want to know my ACE.
Yeah, you don't want to know my score either. We probably are twinsies. Like, that's the thing. I'm going to put a link not only to the feeling wheel, to Barbara's book, but also to ACEs, so that you all can figure this out, because it is a information point. It's not a forever point. Like, that's what I want you to look at when you look at the ACEs, because it also talks about your longevity and blah, blah, blah. But I don't believe that, things aren't set in stone like that. There are things you can do to reverse whatever kind of damage your trauma has done. And we're going to talk about that in other episodes. So, subscribe, like, comment, do all those things so you can make sure you stay up to date. So thank you, Barbara. Thank you for spending this time with us today. Barbara reminded all of us of something so important. Healing does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending the pain never happened. It means learning to carry your story without allowing it to carry you. Healing from a narcissistic mother is real, possible, and you never have to do it with shame. I'm your host, Noelani Pearl Hernandez, and until next time, take gentle care of yourself.
Your skin is a part of your nervous system, and taking care of it is essential to overall balance. Our products are specifically formulated to nourish your skin and bring it closer to homeostasis with every use. Start feeling better in your body today with the Happy Cannabis.